welcome to The Shifter. John Vance, Nick Brunacini, Terry Garrison, all in the house. Are you sensing something?
No, I'm just smiling at all the cameras.
Oh, all the cameras.
And I forgot where they all are. I feel like I'm in a very public, like, transportation building or something where you're... It's in every spy novel you ever read is the facial recognition. That's how they find, the gray man.
A friend of mine is running a company right now that does facial recognition and stops people at hospitals from robbing the honor system at their little snack bars because they're supposed to pay for it. But if it recognizes John Vance didn't pay his bill last time, it sets off an alarm or locks you out, or some security guards come up and hit you in the head with a baton.
Hand over
or
the
something.
Snickers.
Yeah. It's crazy that's how far down facial recognition is right now.
Yeah, that's where we're at. And pretty soon AI will take over and it'll just assassinate you for taking like the 3-month-old peanuts out of the box.
I had one of those facial recognition look at me and it just became sad. Oh, look at that little man. Oh, he's so sad.
He's from the desert.
He's got skin.
How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Good. Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we'd like to talk about leadership stuff, so I wanted to throw out a couple leadership topics. And we were at the conference in Cincinnati, 2-3 weeks ago, whenever that was, and a lot of conversation centered around customer service because, number one, the art of customer service just out and about with the regular public is dying.
Yeah, it's shit.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But we continue to be striving as a fire service to have great customer service. But then the question came up about customer service on the inside out, and what does that mean, and how come our internal customer service will affect our external customer service? Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, Bruno said it best, right? When he said, follow ugly kids home and you'll find ugly parents. We've said that a lot on this show, and Bruno wrote about it, and it makes perfect sense. I think we might have talked about it at the conference. Even it gave some examples of them. We'll do it here today. But that whole deal about, following ugly kids home and finding ugly parents isn't about how they look, obviously. It's about how they treat other people. And I gave an example just happened at the school that my grandson goes to, where there was a kid who was saying bad jokes, and he was picking on people, and he was using the N-word. Well, just so happened his dad was the coach for one of the sports teams, volunteer coach at one of the sports teams. And I witnessed his dad with the same behavior towards the kids that were, he wasn't saying the bad jokes, but he was treating them like shit. And it's like, well, there you go. You got the kid. So the kid got removed from school, and then dad eventually got removed from coaching. And you saw that pass through. But that was just an example that occurred over the last couple of weeks outside the fire service. Pretty amazing.
How trainable, so, I always wondered about the ugly kids, follow them home, ugly parents. So how trainable are those people with the ugly parents? Because how much of that is embedded in them that you're never going to train away or get their behaviors to change? Or is it possible to get their behaviors to change if they were raised that way?
Well, I feel strongly that you can change behavior. And we talked about that too, where people will come to me and they go, Chief, he's just got a bad attitude. And how do you deal with his attitude? And I'll ask, well, what's his attitude? Well, he comes in late. He doesn't participate in training. He's mean to the customers. I said, that's not an attitude problem. Those are actually actions that person has taken. Those are behaviors. You need to hold him accountable and tell him not to do that, and have conversations with him about that, and then hold him accountable if he doesn't change. But that's a behavioral thing. There's some people that are just idiots, right? I mean, they're going to come to work and they're going to be knuckleheads, and they don't need to be in the service delivery of the fire service. And those people have to lose their jobs eventually. We can't keep them on, because when they put that name on the back of their shirt, they represent all of us, right? Both on and off the job. How often do you drive to work or drive around the city and you see a fire department sticker, a union sticker on a truck or a car, and that guy's driving like an asshole? Mm-hmm. Come on, dude, man, you're representing everybody, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of goofy. So
that's why Nick doesn't have a sticker on his car.
No, and I'm not around long enough for them to think I'm an asshole. I'm not in their field of vision at all.
I have no
I
have no stickers either.
Yeah.
I drive in the city of Phoenix, where like the average is every motorist has 1.5 guns in their car. So yeah, being nice in traffic means survival, or just fleeing faster than them and they can't get you. I always found that to be the best.
But I believe to a certain extent you can change people's behavior. Right? We have to be able to do that, because nobody comes in perfect, and we're not perfect. And I know there's probably a time in my life where I had a boss somewhere along the way change my behavior because I probably did something that was being a knucklehead.
We can do things organizationally that encourages the member to change their behavior. They have to voluntarily join the fire department. So if it's a deal that we have to keep deprogramming and reprogramming them, like you said, they probably should get a job doing something else.
But so talking about this inside-outside customer service piece, I was thinking the other day, because it's so important, the way you treat your employees has such an impact on how they treat their customers, I think. I was thinking about writing an article, and the article would be titled, "Hey, idiot, be nice." Kind of an oxymoron there, right? When you call somebody an idiot and you're belittling them and you expect them to be nice to the customer, it doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't. You know, it all, really, everything's got to support doing the work. And, you know, when you look at that, then that's kind of what we did in the leadership thing, is we moved the work to the top. Because the work that we do is very important. You know, it's a public safety thing that is a basic level of keeping society safe. So whether it's a community-wide disasters going on, or a house fire, or a heart attack, whatever it is, see, it's already pre-programmed and set up for us to be successful, because people just love that. We show up and we help them. So I figured out pretty early in my career that was where they measured your performance, is your ability to go out and deliver service. So we figured out, well, if you do this, so when you go out and you're nice to everybody and you do your job like you're supposed to, is that buys you the freedom to live a free life in the station, basically, within limits, you know, because like we said, that one-page rule, there's certain things that if you get caught doing them, it's fatal. You're done. Right. So you want to avoid that. But an example of this inside-outside leadership is we were kind of well-known as B-shifters and being a pirate ship and all the other stuff at the station. We had a great time when we went to work. We loved going to work. It was a lot of fun. Well, and they were having a discussion one day because there was a shift war going on at our station. Right. And it wasn't mean-spirited, but it was like, no, you guys are stupid and we're smart, and you know, it was back and forth. There was a typical shift war. No one got blown up or killed. But our bosses were talking about this, and they're like, okay, we finally got the B shifters at 11. They've done it. They're set up and we can execute them. And they started processing this, and of all people, it was this like medium level IQ BC that represented us, who wasn't on our shift. And they're looking at the whole station dynamic. And this guy comes back, and he was looking at citizens' complaints. And he says, B shift is the only shift at 11 that has 0 citizens' complaints. Everybody else has buckets of them. And he said, so what are we going to do? Those guys piss everybody off being themselves in the station, but when they go out, they're golden. He says, I vote we do nothing. And it was like having a hung jury. So that's what and we knew, what can you do really? Because we go out, we do our jobs. So as long as we do that, we're going to be okay. And see, and we were all conscious and alert members, and we could see what was going on in other parts of the city. So there were stations that we thought, no, if one of my loved ones was in trouble, I don't want those mouth breathers going on them. I'd rather have us, you know, this merry band of pirates go deliver service. So that really kind of became the driving force for the way we operated, at least on the task level.
But, it's interesting because I know that situation, and you guys on the task level were being nice, but the tactical level, your tactical level boss wasn't a very nice guy. But because the organization and the strategic level and Bruno and all the people within the organization were nice, your boss was such an aberrant personality in that system. It's like, okay, we can outperform that guy. The problem is when you have those people throughout.
Especially at the fire chief's position.
Exactly.
See, because that became the rubber bumper for us. It's like, if it gets up to him, he's going to do the right thing.
Right.
See, so we all trusted him that way. And in fact, it became obscene. Like in meetings with him, people would actually start to tear up and call him mommy, and strange Freudian shit like that was going on. And, he was kind of, Jesus Christ, can I be the dad, maybe? No, you get to be both. In fact, none of us know this, but it's going to be really big in the future to be both. So, just embrace it. Be the mommy and daddy that all of us never had. And he'd look at me funny and think, well, but it's an occupational thing with you and me, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just...
But the system was always supportive, right?
Oh, 100%.
And there was people within the system. In fact, there was a few of them, right? There was more than a handful of knuckleheads. The Phoenix Fire.
Oh, there were a ton of them.
Yeah.
It's no different than it is today, Terry.
So,
it's the difference at the top is what that's the seasoning cabinet. And so if you put in enough garlic and oregano, it's going to be delicious. Too much, and it's shit. Yeah. So it's.
And we talk about that in our last podcast about the coddling and people being coddled and the coddlers. You don't need that in your organization. You need people that are realistically nice to you, and you can tell when that's a phony niceness, and you get that crap. And
I may have used this example before, but inside-outside customer service, we were setting the board. The call comes in, no, you can't. Nick, the no's on the phone. So I picked the phone up. Hi, this is Nick. What's your name? It was a engineer who wanted the day off. I need vacation today. So you can't have it. We're in a CM mode. We're already hiring back. You can't. And if we were to allow you to have it, it would cost you 36 hours of vacation to be off today. Well, I'll never do. No, it's only 24. See, exactly. That's why you have to call in advance to get vacation. We're understaffed. Well, this individual starts crying and says, I can't be at work today. And I said, well, why not? What's going on? Well, my mother's in town and I have to have lunch with her. Well, I don't know. Maybe have her to the station for lunch.
Yeah.
And she can go on the call with you because that's what you're doing today. We're denying your request for vacation 10 minutes before you're supposed to be at work.
Yeah, so that's the difference between being nice and following the process. Right? You never yelled at him. You said, no, you can't have the day
I'm
off.
sorry, you can't have it. It's not possible.
It's interesting how, as bosses, we have that positional leadership. And you don't have to be mean to people. I mean, and I've said it before, in Houston, unfortunately, and in other fire departments, I had to lay people off. In Glendale, I had to lay a couple guys. And I wasn't mean to them. They went through a process. They did this. I had to react this way. They did this again. Then I had to react this way. And at the end, they lost their jobs. And it's like, I'm not going to be mean to your... I'm not happy with you. I'm actually mad at you because now we got to go through the process of hiring somebody and all the training and everything that you went through, but I'm not going to show that and be mean to you. So whatever you do tomorrow, you're not going to do it wearing a Glendale Fire Department t-shirt. Good luck to you. But sometimes our boss, when they get caught up in some sort of disciplinary deal, and I could see that, when you're on a fire ground and somebody does something goofy and you're in that autocratic position where you just get mad for, get the heck off the roof or whatever that looks like. But when you're in an actual process and you're dealing with somebody in a disciplinary process, there's no reason to be mean to them.
Well, what Churchill say? If you're going to shoot a man, you don't have to be mean about it. Just kill him and be done.
Did he say that?
Yeah, Churchill said something to that effect. Don't do what you got to do and don't be an asshole about it. Yeah. You can smile and cut their head off.
Yeah, and also the other about the smile, don't look like you're really enjoying it when you fire somebody. Even though I had fired a guy and it was a very enjoyable experience for me, he never knew how much fun I was having because he absolutely needed to be fired and not be a firefighter no more. And but you can't do the gotcha. Oh, I gotcha.
I knew a fire chief that would take a box of Kleenex and set it on the desk and just look at the firefighter for a second, like without saying anything. So it starts to get in the firefighter's mind. It's like, why is he putting a box of Kleenex in front of me? Then he would proceed to fire the firefighter. And he goes, it's like batting around a mouse. I'm a cat batting around.
Oh.
So he was a mean SOB.
Yeah.
And he was doing this just to be mean. He loved that power. Hey, you guys said something about loving work and loving what you do. And how do we love what we do while also dealing with an awful boss? How do we create an environment where we can control and get away as much as we can from that awful boss who's setting a bad tone, who's the ugly parent?
Well, Bruno said it over and over again, is people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses, right? And I've quit a boss before too, because I had a boss who was just not a nice guy. And the mean things he was doing not to me personally, but he was doing to the fire department by budget cuts and trying to make 2-person engine companies and decrease. I mean, he was impacting the entire fire department in a real mean-spirited way. I couldn't outperform that, right? He was just mean. But I've always thought that, and I don't think this is the right answer, but this is a answer, is that we have a lot of opportunities in the fire service, right? I've been fortunate enough to, in Phoenix, if you get a boss that you can't work with, go to another fire station. Somebody will fit with that guy, whoever that guy is, but go to another fire station and enjoy your job. If all you can control is yourself, right, and you need to leave and get away from that bad relationship, then get away from the bad. Sometimes we stay too long and tolerate that. But the organization, once again, for us, we always had trust in the organization that guy was, whoever that idiot was going to be dealt with eventually. That mean-spirited boss.
I worked at a station. I was an officer there for 10 years. And during that 10 years, 8 years of it, we had the worst boss in the field on any shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, on purpose. It is the people above us wanted us to promote, and we didn't want to. We wanted to stay where we were in our little task level cocoon. And so to motivate us, we would have different, full array of bosses on the east side of town there. And it was always us against our boss. So that became kind of just the way you played it. In that time, we had one really good boss, and most of the rest of them were not. They were, but when you look at it, those bosses weren't very effective. The bad ones, is they really didn't know how to like chain a set of activities together to get a produced desired result. So like you could set up companies. Like when I was at BC, you could figure out this guy's an asshole and he needs to quit being an asshole on calls. So there was a certain routine you would go through with those people. Right. You'd meet with them and say, hey, knock it off, or you'd broach it softly. So it's almost like they think, oh, he's just worried about this, and I'm so smart, and I'm so much better, and blah, blah, blah. Well, after about the third or fourth discussion with them, as they started to understand, oh, this is different. He's not just making observations. Now he's giving me like directives. If I don't do, he's threatening to do this and that. So that was the way you would kind of go after them. But when it was happening to you, the solution is just to keep doing your job. If I keep performing like I'm supposed to, there's nothing they can do to me because I watch all these other people. I go on calls with them, and some of them are not competent. You said it earlier. When the fire chief retired, it didn't change the cosmic makeup of the fire department. It was the same group of people were there minus one. So one of the 2,000 left. Well, it was just the wrong one, and then all the others that took the place it changed it too much.
Right.
So you could no longer count on that of doing your job of okay, this is my cloak of invincibility. If you did your job, they didn't care because that wasn't the benchmark anymore. So that's where you could see like a 5 to 6 minute response time grow into a 9-minute response time. So the leadership of the fire department did not care about that anymore. They cared about whatever their bosses in the city told them to care about, which is typically being large and in charge. That's, okay, we're the ones, and boom. So
yeah. So and I didn't know you were going to ask this question. I didn't know this was going to be the topic, but I was just happened to be carrying because I'm reviewing it again for what we're going to teach, and it's the Phoenix Fire Department way that we put together as an organization, where we actually outlined what good behavior looks like and bad behavior looks like, right? Even though we all know that, we came together as an organization. We said, okay, this is what it means to treat people nice, and this is what mean looks like. If you don't have that from the top of your organization down, when you get the asshole battalion chief or your next level supervisor, and you don't have something to hold them accountable, because people will say the same thing. Well, it's just their attitude. That guy's just got bad attitude. Well, what is he doing? Well, he's threatening me. He's doing this. He's doing. But that's not attitude. Those are behaviors. Those are actions. Those are correctable within a process. But you got to have a process in place, and that's what that guy had before he left. He had this, and he believed in it, and we all believed in it. And then after he left, this was never spoke of again.
Yeah.
And behavior became, I don't know. I guess it just wasn't. It wasn't enforced using this, but you can enforce, right, how you treat people.
Well, I know you've codified this in some of the other organizations you've been a chief of. How do you go about promoting, like discovering and then promoting what your culture
Well,
is?
so it's interesting because, so I'll put that to camera if you could see that. I don't know how to do that.
There you go. So
that's the PFD way, which this is from what, the 1980s?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's so when I went to well, every fire department I've went to, we've done something similar to this, where it's like we started talking about it's all that deal when I come in. It's when I heard that, hey, are you going to start holding these people accountable, chief? And you're going to start holding these people accountable, chief? And it's like, what's going on? You start hearing their attitude, and then you realize, no, it's behavior. So it's like, hey, do we all agree that there's a certain level of behavior that we ought to be following? And you get your command team to buy in on that. You get the labor leaders to buy in on that. And then you put together a process, because it can't come directly from the fire chief down. It's got to be an organizational approach to it. And then we put together teams in each one of the organizations I was with. And we got people from we got firefighters, engineers, fire captains, chief officers, labor leaders, and we put together, what do we want the behaviors to look like? And it all pretty much looked like this, but there were some changes to it. There were some additions to it. And then everybody agreed, no, this is the way we ought to look. And we were able to process that organizationally, and then we sent it out to the membership, and we did that, and then we used the accountability model, where we gave the expectations, we gave them a book, we trained on the book, we held them accountable. And, it wasn't perfect, and it's never going to be perfect, and there's going to be people out there going to fight it every step of the way like I've had, but it takes an entire organization to process it. And I guarantee you that whatever organization it is, people want to be treated nice. And there's a large number of people who, when they see other people being treated bad by one or two guys, like we had a boss who was just a knucklehead. Well, he didn't have any support in the system. There was people everywhere within the system saying, yeah, good luck to you. You got to work for that guy. He's a knucklehead. So the system gets around the be nice part. And it's not I use the words be nice, but there's actual actionable behaviors behind the be nice part that you have to follow. And then you hold people accountable. But you got to identify what bad behavior looks like. You got to identify what good behavior looks like. And then you got to say, okay, we want to accept this. And you process that down through to the customer too, right? There's organizations that don't have conversations about how they should treat the customer. Well, this should be a part of it. But along with that, you should have conversations about how you're going to treat each other within the system, so it gets processed through to the customer. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we always talk about how lucky we are. We get to go out and see how other fire departments operate. And I'll go into organizations where they're not very proficient. They're not on it. You know, when they pull up on a 911 call, they just have a lot of issues and failures. And a lot of times it's because the internal focus is so negative, and they're just trying to figure out where the next grievance is going to be and how can we be against C-shift and those types of things, instead of focusing on the service delivery that they're going to have. So it ends up that their service delivery is unsuccessful, which leads to a whole circle of them being not very proud of their organization.
Well, if you look at every successful organization out there, whether it's McDonald's or whatever, Macy's or whatever, they have a conversation on the front end of how they're going to treat each other and how they're going to treat the customer. Why wouldn't we do that at the fire department, right? And we always say that, Mrs. Smith, she gets whoever we send her. And she doesn't get to go to the phone book and say, oh, yeah, this company has a 5-star rating. I'm going to call this one. This one has no business. What is that? Better Business Bureau complaints. I'm going to call them. They get the fire department that shows up from their neighborhood. So it's our responsibility to make sure they get the best they can get. And sure, we got knuckleheads within the system, but we got to hold the knuckleheads in check. Sometimes a knucklehead is your boss, Nick.
We provide technical service in emotional settings, essentially. So there's two different things going on. So we show up to do the technical part. That's our job, right? So you have some people who are benevolent and some people that are assholes. And I think that's where the water breaks on the thing. So if I'm a benevolent person and I show up to do my job, I do the technical piece. That's what I'm trained to do. So whether it's CPR or laying an attack, a supply line and advancing attack lines, whatever that looks like, there's a level of competence to execute in those maneuvers, those task level evolutions. The way we deliver that service is based on whether you're, on what kind of a person you are. So if you default to being an asshole, that's the way you're going to deliver that service. And those people, you hear them and they'll say, it's our job to educate the customer. Is you shouldn't have called us for these 8 reasons, so I'm going to educate you. No, they didn't call to get educated. This ain't school, asshole. They called because of this, that, or the other thing. So whether it's you define it as legitimate or an illegitimate call, you legitimately get paid every 2 weeks. So that's your commitment. Is you showed up, you take the money, you do the work.
Well, and people don't have to qualify for our service. We said that the other day. They don't have to smell a certain way. They don't have to be completely sober. They don't have to have any kind of pronoun that makes sense. They should not qualify for our service. And a lot of times we arrive on the scene, and we've done it throughout our career, is we'll look at them and go, well, oh, God, this guy, he doesn't even deserve us being in this house. Look at this house. They got 4 freaking cars in the driveway and parked in the yard. Why are we here? Mm-hmm. And we start qualifying whether they are judging them, whether they qualify for our service. And we shouldn't do that.
We used to see Bunghole George 3 times a week. He lived on the street and people would call. I mean, that's just what happened. And these are in the days where you'd have to pull over and like use a payphone to call. And it's okay. And so he got wheeled around a lot. But I mean, and you really couldn't be mean to him, but you knew him. So there was a different kind of relationship with us and some of the regulars that you would see routinely.
Bunghole George was not a nice guy. It was hard to be nice. You had to be nice from a distance or from behind him, because the truth about Bunghole George is he had 1 or 2 legs missing. I can't remember which.
One.
And he had a colostomy bag, and he'd sit in his wheelchair. And when you would come up to service to check him out, if you were a new guy, you didn't realize that he could hit that colostomy bag and shoot that stuff about 10 feet out.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a nice person. So we understand, and that's not a snivel call that started like in this era with generation whatever. We've been doing that forever, right? So, but
this individual, one night they're in a field sitting around a bonfire, right, just having a good time. Bunghole falls face first into the fire, and he's he's got some free burning going on by the time his associates figure out it's not a piece of wood, it's Bunghole. They call 911, and A shift went on him. So we relieve him in the morning. And they said, you ain't going to see Bunghole again. And they tell us the story. It's too bad. We go about our business. 1 month later, Bunghole's going down the street, and his whole head's wrapped in gauze except for his mouth, and he's just spitting at people. And you're like, one day, he's just going to be a head rolling down the street, expelling fluid at the world.
And we didn't nickname him. His buddies did.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, that's what you would ask him. You put it on the form. Bunghole George. Okie dokie.
It wasn't a mean-spirited thing. That's what, honestly, I never...
Well, and on the weekends, he would wheel into the station. It was rig day, and they'd soap him up and brush him and rinse him off, and he'd wheel away.
Yeah, when he was sober, he wasn't as bad as when he was drunk.
Hey man, some of those rummies, if you got them sober and they start talking, you think you were an airplane pilot during the war? Oh yeah, blah 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 blah. But the next day you come back and I was a ferry boat operator during the 1800s on the Mississippi. Oh, okay, you're just insane. I could follow you.
But you. Can you imagine if your boss treats you like shit, and he or she's mean over, and they're worried about shit like, instead of the way you just treated Bunghole George because you were nice to Bunghole George, when you get back in the station, they're looking at you like, what's up with your shoes not being tied, or some freaking stupid thing.
That's
like
what
that.
It is. They're always looking to enforce something,
and that's what it is. They focus on those people that are kind of mean-spirited. If you watch them, they focus on the little bitty stuff. They focus on, and Bruno talks about it in the leadership program that we're stealing from them, is that they focus on appearance, they focus on maintenance, and maintenance is important.
Attendance.
Appearance is important.
Easily enforceable.
And they focus on those, and they don't focus on safety, customer service, how to do your job better.
These same people, you sit through an after-action review of a hazard zone operation, and they're clueless. And you're like,
so you're going to do a timeless, tactical truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Start with that then.
All right. Timeless tactical truth, and this one, of course, well, they're all from Bruno, and this one says, "Nice means sitting on the curb with Mrs. Smith." Nice means sitting on the curb with Mrs. Smith. To have empathy in our jobs is very important, but I've really been talking a lot lately with my folks about de-victimizing people as soon as possible, and Bruno used to talk about that all the time. Why is it important for us to de-victimize and sit with Mrs. Smith?
Well, it's the way you finish the call. So we get there, figure out what's going on, we intervene. Once you take action, then you start to de-escalate the thing. And part of that is giving control back to the person that called. And, that varies, based on the reason they called. So, it's if Mrs. Smith's got a burned out kitchen and living room, then there's going to be some stuff, post-incident things, that is going to affect her life greatly. So us finishing that call, for us, meant, okay, we got to connect her with who's going to take care of this next. So, and then... I guess that's where you educate her to, okay, this is what just happened to you, and here's what's going to happen after this. And you're going to have these people coming in, and now depending on the part of town you work in, you got insurance companies, you got the Red Cross, you got after fire stuff. We would have the AR vans back in the day, so you had these resources that you could connect the customer to. Like even sometimes their own family, is you have somebody in town. Yeah, my son lives 3 miles away. Well, let's call your son and have your son come over. In the meantime, we'll get you your medicine and some clothes and your toothbrush and your kitty cat. And so we'll collect all that. So maybe it takes an extra 10, 15 minutes to finish the call like that. But what you do is you hand the patient off. See, and Alan Brunacini used to talk, is he provided service in a way where you didn't do that. where you did the technical part, and when that was done, you disconnected. There was no emotional piece to it because we were strong and silent and, just signals of the community to keep it safe. Well, the new day, it's like, no, there's a customer in it. So that becomes the driving force. It's really, once the fire is no longer a threat, that becomes the primary thing is, okay, how do we get you back to where you're a self-sustaining, functioning member of society? I mean, and he used to talk about that. That is a big deal when the government shows up, they help you out, they connect you with the next set of services you need, and then they leave. We don't send her 800 bills. We don't sell her information. We don't come back to re-educate her or any of that. It's like, no, we did our job. Here you go. If you need something, call these 3 numbers again.
So when I think about that, that's all good. When I think about that Mrs. Smith sitting on that bench is a crack addict that's lived on that bench for a week and a half.
Bunghole George.
Yeah, it's Bunghole George or whoever. And it's like, sitting there with them for a second or a minute or whatever while you focus on the work. And Nick said that in our leadership. We got to go back and focus on the work. So what can we do for this person? Well, Narcan, get them in an ambulance, get them transported, whatever you can do for them. But, at the end of that call, when that homeless person and his buddies are sitting there it's irritating, I get it. We're going to go back to our fire station. We're going to eat a big lunch. We're going to get in our big red trucks with our 4-wheel drives, and we're going to drive away to our houses, and we got a pretty good life. And if you could just spend a little bit of time focusing on, okay, let me just empathize with this person or even sympathize, because maybe you can't even put yourself in that position. It's like, I could never see myself that way. Well, we know people that were firefighters in big trucks that later on slept on benches because of addiction. So it could happen to anybody. So for me, the real challenge for our firefighters is not the Mrs. Smith with that kitchen fire. I think that's a challenge too. But the biggest challenge is how do you keep that same temperament and that same giving perspective to people that are really, they're just down, right? That's the hard part. That's the challenge. And you make a big deal out of that, right? When a fire captain sees their firefighter treating somebody kindly in those situations, go back to the station and say, hey, man, what you did there was really well. Now, next time, don't get so close because maybe they have, whatever it is, teachable moment, but really hold them accountable for that really good behavior that they just witnessed there. Or if somebody treats them like shit, you take them back to the station and say, hey, we can't do that, right? Here's why we can't do that, because it's a direct reflection on us now. If you treat that person like shit and it's witnessed, say you stand them, and I've seen this too, and you've seen it too, we stand over them like we want to kick the shit out of them, and cars are going by. They don't remember the guy on the ground. They remember the attitudes of the people standing over them and how they treated that person. And I think we just need to be very careful with that as we go forward.
Well, a big issue in the fire service is PTSD from your career. It's, you see this and that and the other thing, and depending on who you talk to, some mental health people say, no, if you're a fireman, you got PTSD from your job. And others, it's like, well, now there's 4 things that if you have those 4 things, then you've got PTSD. Well, as I look at it, I don't have those 4 things. I have no trouble going to sleep. I don't have flashbacks of that kind of thing, and whatever the other 2 are.
Okay.
So it hasn't caused that much disruption. And part of that, the protective effect is being nice to people. Is I worked with 2 engineers when I was on a company, and they were the most judgmental son of a bitches I knew that I ever worked with. And they were. I mean, they had their own personal beliefs about how life looked and what you were supposed to do. And they didn't agree with each other on about 90% of it. But they got along. They were best friends, and it was through the work we did.
Right.
And so they would show up on calls, and they would not judge people or educate them. They would make simple declarative statements. My husband tried to kill me, and he beat me and did this and that and the other thing. And my engineer, Ronnie, would say, ma'am, that's horrible, but we don't have a pill for that. So we would just sit down and try to talk them through it and get them to where they felt better after we left than before we got there. That became the thing. No, just don't piss them off and try to de-escalate, and maybe they'll go back to bed. Here, have a bottle of water, and we'll give you some taxi vouchers. Or
if you identified a work objective when you go on these calls is try to make them feel better after you leave, that'd be a pretty awesome objective to try to shoot for on every call.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to do that every time.
Oh, no. I mean, that's...
But if that's like, hey...
Sorry, your family died.
Our objective, we're going to focus on the work, but one of our objectives with our work is to make them feel better.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
Isn't that what most people want from a service encounter? Yeah. I go in and I get some service and I leave feeling better than when I went in because I got whatever need met. Like if it's going to a restaurant or the hardware store or wherever. And like Vance said to start this off, man, service is going to shit today. As you go into a place, if you get good service, it's an accident. Yeah.
Well, Maya Angelou said that people will remember how you made them feel. They'll forget a lot of what you said, but if you made somebody feel like they were a hindrance or you made them feel like crap for calling 911 for the 10th time this week or whatever the case is, they're going to remember that. And there's a lot of stuff we can get away with probably as care providers, but if we make somebody feel like crap, they're going to carry that with them, and they're going to tell other people about it. And that damn fire department did this when they came to my house, so
and usually in most cases it's the opposite. Most people have a very good experience with the fire department when they come out.
Typically,
and I think that's what we want is an occupation organizations and the rest of it.
That's our brand.
Yeah.
But if we don't monitor that, it could go to shit.
Oh, it sure can. Yeah. See, and we parlayed that during our careers. As you could see, the people that did their jobs did it very well. So we started off with a certain benefit package when we began our career. And at the end of it, it was... did not reflect what it looked like starting. No. And that's because we had an organization that figured out, okay, this is what the people want. We're going to give them this. We're going to put it on TV through the news for 5 minutes every single night.
Well, that's a good spot to leave it, gentlemen.
Sorry, Vance, so you're going to have to edit this one a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's here.
Very good.
That's what I'm here for. So, great discussion. Thanks as always, guys. It was good hanging out with you. We'll be back real soon. If you've got questions, comments, whatever, send them to us. Our information is in the show notes. Until next time, thanks so much for listening to B Shifter.
Shout out.